The neon lights of the orbital haven flickered against the reinforced viewport, casting crimson and blue shadows across the crowded bar. It was a place where species from across the galaxy came to forget. Forget the wars, the losses, the screams that echoed in the silence of space. Aliana sat alone at the corner booth, nursing a glass of Terran whiskey that cost more than most beings made in a week. Her fingers traced the rim absently, her mind elsewhere, trapped in memories she couldn't quite shake. She didn't look like much to the casual observer. Average height for a human, lean build, with dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. Her jacket was worn but clean, and her eyes, those pale gray eyes, carried a weight that made even the most battle-hardened veterans look away. She preferred it that way. Anonymity was a luxury she'd earned with blood and sacrifice. Nox entered the bar like a storm cloud rolling in. He was Vakrian, one of the reptilian warrior species that dominated the Galactic Defense Coalition's front lines. 7 feet of scaled muscle with eyes that could track a target from half a mile away and reflexes that put most cybernetics to shame. His ceremonial combat marks were still visible on his neck, fresh from a recent campaign. He was off duty, but Vakrians never truly stopped being soldiers. The bar's ambient chatter dimmed slightly as Nox made his way to the counter, his presence commanding involuntary respect. He ordered something strong and corrosive, the kind of drink that would kill most oxygen breathers. As he waited, his eyes swept the room with practiced efficiency, cataloging threats and exits out of pure instinct. They landed on Aliana. For a moment, recognition flickered across his features. Not of her face. No, that would be impossible. But something about the way she sat, the controlled stillness, the deliberate positioning that gave her sight lines to every entrance. Soldier recognizing soldier. Nox took his drink and approached her table. Aliana noticed him coming, but didn't react, didn't tense. She'd seen him the moment he walked in. "Mind if I sit?" Nox asked in heavily accented but fluent standard. Aliana gestured to the seat across from her with her glass. "It's a free station." Nox settled into the reinforced chair, which creaked under his weight. For a few moments they sat in silence, 2 warriors from different worlds sharing the universal language of those who'd seen too much. "You served," Nox said. It wasn't a question. "Everyone served something," Aliana replied, taking a sip of her whiskey. Nox's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. "True enough, but I recognize the look. Terran military?" "Was." "Which campaign?" "Several." Nox leaned back, studying her with those predator eyes. "You're cautious. Good. The galaxy's not kind to those who talk too freely." He paused, then continued. "I served in the Epsilon Offensive, 3rd wave assault on the Crithian strongholds." Aliana's eyes flickered with something. Recognition, perhaps, or memory. The Epsilon Offensive had been brutal, a meat grinder that consumed entire battalions. The fact that Nox survived it spoke to either incredible skill or impossible luck. "That was a hard fight," she acknowledged. "The hardest," Nox agreed. "We lost 60% of our forces in the first week, but we held. We always hold." His chest swelled slightly with pride. "The Vakrian legions are the shield of the coalition. We've never retreated, never broken." "That so?" Aliana's tone was neutral, but there was something underneath it, something sharp. Nox didn't catch the warning. He was warming to his subject now, the alcohol and the company loosening his tongue. "In the Legion, we earn our call signs through blood. Mine is Iron Scale. Took a plasma blast that should have killed me. Walked away with just scars." He gestured to a patch of discolored scales on his shoulder. "What about you, human? Did you earn a call sign?" The bar seemed to hold its breath. Several patrons had been listening, and now the conversations around them died completely. Aliana set her glass down carefully, precisely on the table. "I had one," she said quietly. Knox leaned forward, interested. Well, what did they call you? Aliana met his eyes, and in that moment Knox saw something that made his combat instincts scream. Her eyes weren't just tired. They were ancient, heavy with the weight of things he couldn't imagine. The Reaper. The words dropped into the silence like a stone into still water. Knox froze. Around them, several beings stood and quietly left the bar. A Centauri merchant actually knocked over his drink in his haste to exit. The Reaper. Every species in the Coalition knew that name. It was whispered in barracks and told in stories that soldiers swore were myths. The Reaper had been a human operator during the Silence Wars, the classified conflicts that officially never happened. While Vacrian legions fought their honorable battles with millions of troops, the Reaper had ended entire conflicts alone. Whole enemy command structures disappeared. Planetary rebellions collapsed overnight. Warlords who'd terrorized sectors for decades simply ceased to exist. The numbers varied depending on who told the story, but conservative estimates put the Reaper's confirmed eliminations in the thousands. Strategic targets, each one supposedly impossible, each one absolutely necessary, each one carried out with such precision that Coalition intelligence still used the operations as case studies. Knox's hand had unconsciously moved toward where his sidearm would have been if he'd been on duty. Aliana noticed but didn't react. That's not possible, Knox said, his voice barely above a whisper. The Reaper is a ghost story. A legend. Legends have to start somewhere, Aliana said simply. But you're... Knox struggled with the words. You're just sitting here, alone, in a bar. I'm retired. Retired? Knox laughed, but there was no humor in it. Does someone like you get to retire? I made my peace. Did my time. The galaxy doesn't need Reapers anymore. Aliana finished her whiskey. It needs builders now, healers, people who can create instead of destroy. Knox stared at her, his entire understanding of the universe slightly tilted. Here was a being who'd shaped the fate of civilizations, who'd been the Coalition's most effective weapon, sitting across from him like any other veteran trying to find purpose after the war. Why tell me? He finally asked. Because you asked. Aliana stood, dropping credits on the table for her drink. And because you earned the right to know. You fought at Epsilon. You bled for something bigger than yourself. That matters. She started to walk away, then paused and looked back at Knox. For the first time that evening, something like a smile touched her lips. Besides, Ironscale, legends are better when people think they're just stories. Keeps the galaxy safer that way. Aliana walked out into the station corridor, disappearing into the flow of beings from 1,000 worlds. Knox sat alone at the table, his drink forgotten, staring at the space where she'd been. The bar slowly came back to life around him, conversations resuming in hushed tones. Knox would tell this story later, back with his legion. Some would believe him, most wouldn't. But he would know the truth. Humanity's deadliest weapon wasn't their ships, their technology, or their numbers. It was their ability to produce individuals who could change everything, then walk away and disappear into the crowd. The Reaper was real, and she was retired. Somehow, that terrified Knox more than anything he'd faced in combat. He raised his glass in a silent salute to the empty air, then drank deeply. In the morning, he'd ship out to his next assignment. But tonight, he'd met a legend, and she'd let him live to tell about it.